Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I thank you for holding this important hearing. A year ago today, I was on my farm in Marion County, Indiana, for an Earth Day ceremony, recognizing the role of agriculture and forestry in mitigating the social, economic, and political threats posed by climate change. I was joined by Richard Sander, Chairman and CEO of the Chicago Climate Exchange, Tom Bias, President of the National Farmers Union, to promote how certain no-tillage agricultural practices and forestry can sequester carbon dioxide and help offset the environmental threats from excessive carbon emissions. For a number of years now, we've dedicated about a third of the 604-acre Lugar farm to growing black walnut and other hardwood trees. As these majestic trees grow, they absorb and store carbon from the air around Indianapolis. To highlight the opportunities of participating in the markets for carbon sequestration, the Lugar Stock Farm has entered into a binding contract with Chicago Climate Exchange to provide offset credits to entities that may want to use them to mitigate the greenhouse gases they produce. These markets can be an important tool in our broader climate change policy, and this has given us an opportunity to discuss the subject more broadly in Indiana. I believe carbon sequestration and many other innovative ideas can change the dynamic of the political debate on climate change, both in the United States and internationally. The debate should be about more than constraints. It should be about how we can use economic incentives and opportunities to change behavior and to influence the personal and societal choices that we make. Clearly, there are economic opportunities in clean energy sources, solar, wind, and biofuels, and carbon sequestration and storage technologies. But improvements in farming and forestry practice may be among the lowest hanging fruit in the quest to deal with climate change. During the global climate change discussions in the late 1990s in Kyoto, the concept of carbon sinks provided by forestry and agriculture was taken off the table. But last year, during the Bali discussions, the topic of carbon sequestration through forestry and agriculture practice was revived. And this is an important development in my judgment. It should be embraced by the United States. I mentioned the celebration at my farm last year with Chicago Climate Exchange, but more than 20 years ago, we had a similar celebration at my farm when Secretary of Agriculture John Block announced the Conservation Reserve Program. Now, this program has encouraged thousands of American farmers to grow trees on marginal lands, especially among watersheds. Many American farmers participate in this program, but many more should do so because almost every American farm has a back 40 of unused land. Native trees should be planted on this land, and this practice provides income for farmers and climate change mitigation for the world. I also want to note that 10 years ago, Senator Joe Biden and I passed the Tropical Forest Conservation Act. And since then, more than 47 million acres of tropical forests around the world have been conserved through, quote, debt for nature swaps, in 12 countries. Recently, the Foreign Relations Committee passed a reauthorization of this bill, which I'm hopeful will be approved soon by the full Senate. This program has given the United States a cost-effective tool with which to promote the preservation of tropical forests, but much more needs to be done, obviously, on a global scale. All these activities could serve as part of the foundation for any cap-and-trade system that arises out of legislation in this country or international agreements under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. A critical element of any cap-and-trade system is the accountability and transparency of the carbon that is being mitigated, sequestered, and stored. Chicago Climate Exchange requires me to conduct an annual accounting of my trees, and that's not difficult for only 200 acres of hardwood trees. But how do we analyze tens of thousands of acres of trees in remote areas of the world? Now, this is one of the questions at the heart of Project Vulcan at Purdue University. I'm particularly pleased Professor Kevin Gurney, who leads Project Vulcan, is here to testify today. Last week, I sent a dear colleague letter to senators depicting one of a series of maps produced by Purdue, along with NASA and the Department of Energy, showing carbon emissions in the United States. This type of mapping technology will be critical to a vibrant carbon trading market in the future and to efforts to quantify the benefits of preserving forest lands. I welcome all of our distinguished witnesses and look forward, along with you, Mr. Chairman, to their testimony.
Thank you, Senator Lugar.